Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Because I had a couple subscribers actually discuss this, send it to me. Apparently Russell Wilson, the quarterback with the Seattle Seahawks, who incidentally I had a cousin play for 2 years, go look it up. People accuse me of lying on that too until they actually look it up and find out I'm not. But that being said, he supposedly lost 11 pounds and lost 6% body fat this year, and which is totally believable. I mean, football players do that all the time. The problem is that his nutritionist got up and talked about it, and it's now on ESPN, the NFL's website. A couple different websites are discussing his nutrition and what this guru taught him. And the thing is that it's so insane that you know that this nutritionist has never studied nutrition, definitely never studied it in a school, has no degree, has never read anything actually written by a registered dietitian or anyone who actually has a degree in sports nutrition. He's never even read the basics. The stuff he's saying is absolutely insane. Let's cover some of it. Now, one of the things he did is to speed his metabolism up, because he's saying that, you know, with athletes and people, if you eat too little, your metabolism slows down. That's not really that true. Yes, there's less thermic effect. And yes, increasing carbs or protein can increase thermic effect, and also you can increase energy turnover because you can train harder on more food. There is something to be said for that. But people don't actually stall in weight loss, and that's what he's saying in the article. That, you know, you get fat people who say it's food that makes you fat, and they eat an apple and a little bit of tuna every day and they stay fat. That's not reality. That's been looked at over and over. Do you know what those people actually do? They eat a whole cake while claiming they eat tuna and an apple, and when you put them in a metabolic ward and you have them film 24 hours a day, they actually can't remember eating the cake, and they start crying when you show it to them on camera. Okay, that's actually what happens. It is biologically impossible for a obese person to not lose weight eating very small amounts of food. They will lose body fat, absolutely proven over and over, but this guy wants to have us believe that that's what's happening. And if you just really increase calories and more meals a day, you'll speed up a person's metabolism. That's what he wants us to believe. The key to burning fat is to just increase calories and increase meal frequency. Eat 9 meals a day. That's been debunked over a decade ago. The whole high meal frequency thing, increasing metabolism through thermic effect and everything, was studied. It was a hypothesis put forward about 20 years ago. Guess what? When it was studied, it was found to not be a valid hypothesis. It's been invalidated. It's not true. You don't have any higher metabolism eating 6 meals or 10 meals a day versus eating 3 of the exact same foods. Doesn't make any real difference. It might impact your training a little bit because you might have a little more energy with certain amounts of timings, but it doesn't actually affect the thermic effect or your base metabolic rate. It can affect how much you move around and how hard you train, but that varies from person to person. But that's the thing that he would have us believe, that the guy, he increased his calories by 2,000 a day, and that's what caused fat loss. Now keep in mind, he lost 11 pounds but lost 6% body fat, so he probably had to have gained a little bit of muscle in there. Doable, but it's certainly not from doing that. Now, here's the kicker. Did he increase his calories? Maybe add some more growth hormone to his stack? Because we all know growth hormone is really, really easy to get through drug testing. And it's well known in any circle that looks at it. The NFL players use a lot of HGH. Why do they use it? Because it's really easy to get through drug testing. Yeah, it's really expensive, but they got the money. They don't mind spending a couple $1,000s a month on real growth hormone. That's really not that much for an NFL player. That's one of the main things they use. Maybe he upped his HGH and then upped his physical activity. All right, he increased the amount of training he was doing, the amount of conditioning he was doing by a large amount. If he did that when he increased his calories, yeah, that'll burn body fat. But if you're sitting at 225 and you follow the exact same training, the same exercise, same amount of cardio, same amount of conditioning, and you increase your calories by 2,000, what's going to happen? Anybody? Well, I can tell you what's going to happen. You're going to gain about ½ a pound of fat every week. That's what's going to happen. If you're at maintenance calories and you're maintaining, and in this case, I think he said he might have been on 2,500 or something, 2,800, something like that, and increase it to 4,800, because I saw a couple different articles. Well, here's the thing, guys. What athlete eats 2,800 calories a day? There's no way a well-conditioned athlete who's lifting weights, training, weighs 225, is eating 2,500 calories a day and maintaining their body weight. He was probably eating more and just not tracking it. And then when he filled out a little report log, they concluded 2,500 or 2,800. There's no way a 225-pound NFL player who's a well-conditioned athlete is only burning 2,500 calories a day. So what they could have done is increased his conditioning, maybe upped his dose a little bit, along with a lot more conditioning work, and that'll do it. That'll lean you out real fast as a athlete like that. And you'll have the work capacity and recovery to handle it, particularly in the off season. Totally doable. But this is absurd that just by increasing calories and adding meal frequency that you're going to lose body fat. Absolutely biologically impossible. All right? It's not even remotely imaginable under any of the known laws of biology, and it's not even remotely imaginable under the known laws of nutritional science. That is not how things work. That's the sort of nonsense gurus use to sell books or sell ideas that's not actually based on what happens in the lab. And even in professional athletes, when they're studied in the lab, they are still subject to the laws of calories in, calories out. Now, that being said, increasing calories in, particularly carbs, can increase calories out because you can train a hell of a lot harder. You can train a lot more if you're adding, 1,000 plus calories of extra carbs a day, but you have to burn through it physically with physical activity. And it might be possible that he did that, but losing 11 pounds on 4,800 calories, that's a little crazy. That's a little crazy even by my standards. Even the amount of activity I'm currently doing and losing weight, I'm not on 4,800 calories. That's for sure. Again, it might be possible for a well-conditioned athlete who is doing hours and hours of training every day to lose weight slowly on 4,800 calories. It's possible, but they're going to have to do an enormous amount of conditioning to do that. And he very well might have done that. That's the thing that's not being addressed here. That component's not being addressed. If he upped his energy expenditure by 2,200 calories a day or 2,300 calories a day due to both the thermic effect of the food, way more conditioning work, and I'm talking adding hours of conditioning every day to what he's currently doing, yes, he might have lost weight. Yes, he might have preserved muscle and even recompositioned a little doing that. It's possible. But they're not addressing the energy outside correctly. Your energy out isn't automatically going to go up when you increase food. What happens is that when you increase food at maintenance, if you don't up your energy expenditure through physical activity, you gain body fat. You don't go from 15% body fat, or whatever it was, 16% down to 10%. Doesn't work that way. That's not how the human body works. Now, the even more ridiculous part, he said he's avoiding inflammatory foods like gluten and dairy. All foods are inflammatory, and again, this is nonsense. Inflammation of your foods has never, ever, even once been linked with data to weight loss or weight gain or body fat. All right, food intolerances like gluten intolerance, which is the only problem ever found with gluten, is called celiac disease. You wouldn't be able to stay over 200 pounds. If you were eating gluten every day and you were actually legitimately gluten intolerant, it's not uncommon to lose 50 to 100 pounds of body weight inside of a year. It's actually pretty common. I have known 2 people personally who have celiac disease, 2 of them. One of them was a guy who was 120 pounds when they diagnosed his celiac, and he became a power lifter in the 242-pound class. He spent years rebuilding and eating after he got off gluten. He weighed 120 pounds due to his gluten intolerance. Same thing, I know a chick now, gluten intolerant, a friend of ours. She struggles to get above 100 pounds. She dropped down to 90 pounds, and she's fairly tall due to her celiac. That's what actual gluten intolerance does. Gluten is inflammatory. If you don't have celiac disease, avoiding gluten as an athlete is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. It's not based on anything other than pseudoscience books. It's not based on reality. It's not based on sports nutrition and athletes as we know it. In fact, most of your champions in these sports eat plenty of gluten. And if you have celiac disease, weight gain or retaining weight is never going to happen. True celiac disease, the only documented intolerance or problem with gluten that any person has, causes rapid weight loss through malnutrition when you ingest gluten, because you crap blood out and it destroys some of the lining of your intestine. Same thing, inflammation, really? This is nonsense. This is the sort of stuff that's used to sell diet books. His nutritionist is a total quack. He is a total quack, spouting stuff that every single expert in sports nutrition or even normal nutritional science would be rolling their eyes at. It's absolutely absurd. This is a sort of bullshit that's used to sell quack fad diet books. You don't increase your metabolism by changing the number of meals a day you eat. Yeah, you can go up a little bit by increasing food, but that's only a small amount. It's a very minor amount. Like if you added 2,000 calories a day, you're going to increase your energy turnover by a couple hundred calories through the exothermic effect. That is true, particularly if it's carbs or protein, not fat. Fat, it'll be zero. But all it lets you do is train harder and train more so that you have more training fuel. All right, that's a different story for a highly conditioned athlete, but an extra 2,000 calories, you got to do a lot. And as far as inflammation, inflammatory foods like dairy or gluten being a problem, every study we've ever done, shows that people who consume low-fat or fat-free dairy lose body fat slightly easier than people who don't. It actually seems to help a little bit with weight loss. It's actually, most low-fat dairy products are actually a very good weight loss foods. Been found over and over and over to be the case. They tend to be very good for retaining muscle. They tend to be very good for your overall nutrition profile. Dairy is generally considered to be a good weight loss food if you're not lactose intolerant. And if you are, there are forms of dairy that don't have lactose. But again, we're talking about food intolerance, not inflammation. People obsessing over the inflammation of their food, absolutely absurd. And here's the thing. The most inflammatory foods known to man, he's still eating every day on his diet. And that's the hilarious part. Almonds. Look at the almonds in there. They're loaded full of omega-6 fats. Omega-6 fats are the most inflammatory food sources you're ever going to find because of the inflammatory prostaglandins they create. And I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not calling omega-6 fats bad, but if you wanted to cut inflammatory foods out of your diet, the very first thing you would cut out would be all nuts. If you actually said, okay, for some reason I have to cut inflammatory foods, nuts would be the first thing you cut out, not dairy or grains. They're way down the list. So again, complete quackery. Complete quackery. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.